Welcome to Analyzing Story Elements, specifically with plot setting and conflict. Today's goal, I can analyze how elements of a story or drama interact. Let's start with a quick review of what the plot is. We'll start with the exposition. The exposition is how we enter into the story. It helps to introduce the characters and the setting. Next, we see the inciting incident. This is new to many of you this year. It actually occurs right here at this point. It's how we go from the exposition into the events of the rising action. This is where we discover the conflict of the story. It lets us know what everything is going to be about. Then we have rising action. Rising action causes events and usually a lot of excitement. Now, rising action here is shown as like one steady line. But typically when we have rising action, it's small jagged peaks. These peaks usually occur at the end of chapters. It's one way to get kids, students, parents, everyone hooked into the story. Then we have the climax of the story. Now, this part is really important. The climax, or the turning point of the story, is where important information is discovered that will solve the conflict. It changes the story. It's letting us know we're starting to get to the wrap-up, which is the falling action. Finally, we have the resolution. The resolution is the final part that wraps up most of the conflict. If this is a series, then we won't have as much to wrap up. The key part of setting is that it is both the time and the place. This could mean the time is summer and the place is by the lake, or the time could be back in the 1800s and the place is near a castle. Notice that flashbacks can also change the time and place throughout the story. Longer stories will typically have more than one time or place, but we think about the main setting, the start of our book, and we might write down others from there. We typically have four main types of conflict in the story. It could be character versus character, character versus nature, character versus society, or an internal conflict such as character versus self. In The Outsiders, we see quite a bit of character versus society. We also see some character versus self when Ponyboy is thinking about what has happened or how he feels about something. But typically, the number one part in the book is character versus society. Think of what type of conflict is going on in your story that you're reading right now for your choice book. Is it more external or internal? Is there a specific external part that you can think of? Please fill out the story map as I read through the story of Theseus and the Minotaur. Theseus and the Minotaur, written by Lionel Dawn and illustrated by Philip Martin. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a king named Minos. King Minos lived on a lovely island called Crete. King Minos had a powerful navy, a beautiful daughter, and a really big palace. Still, now and then, King Minos grew bored. Whenever King Minos was bored, he took his navy and attacked Athens, a town on the other side of the sea. In desperation, the king of Athens offered King Minos a deal. If Minos would leave Athens alone, Athens would send 7 Athenian boys and 7 Athenian girls to Crete every 9 years to be eaten by the Minotaur. The Minotaur was a horrible monster that lived in the center of a huge maze on the island of Crete. King Minos loved that old monster. He liked to give his monster a treat now and then. He knew his people would prefer he fed his monster Athenian children rather than, well, after thinking it over, King Minos took the deal. 9 years passed swiftly. It was just about time for Athens to send 7 boys and 7 girls to Crete to be eaten by the Minotaur. Everyone in Athens was crying. Prince Theseus of Athens was very young. He knew that a deal was a deal, but he was sure it was wrong to send small children to be eaten by a monster just to avoid a battle with King Minos. Prince Theseus told his father, the king, he was going to Crete as the seventh son of Athens. He would kill the Minotaur and end the terror. "The Minotaur is a terrible monster. What makes you think you can kill it?" cried his father. "I'll find a way," Theseus replied gently. "The gods will help me." His father begged him not to go, but the prince took his place as the seventh Athenian boy. Along with 6 other Athenian boys and 7 Athenian girls, Prince Theseus sailed towards Crete. When the prince and the children arrived on the island of Crete, King Minos and his daughter, the Princess Ariadne, came out to greet them. The king told the children they would not be eaten until the next day and to enjoy themselves in the palace in the meantime. The Princess Ariadne did not say anything, but her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Late that night, she wrote Prince Theseus a note and slipped it under his bedroom door. "Dear Theseus," Ariadne wrote, "I am a beautiful princess, as you probably noticed the minute you saw me. I am also a very bored princess. Without my help, the Minotaur will surely gobble you up. I know a trick or two that will save your life. If I help you kill the monster, you must promise to take me away from this tiny island so that others can admire my beauty. If interested in this deal, please meet me by the gate to the labyrinth in 1 hour. Yours very truly, Princess Ariadne." Prince Theseus slipped out of the palace and waited patiently by the gate. Princess Ariadne finally showed up. She carried a sword and a ball of string. Theseus thanked the princess for her kindness. "Don't forget now," she cautioned Theseus. "You must take me with you so that all the people can marvel at my beauty. A deal is a deal." The next morning, the Athenian children, including Prince Theseus, were shoved into the maze. The door was locked firmly behind them. Following Ariadne's instructions, Theseus tied one end of the string to the door. He told the children to stay by the door. Their job was to make sure the string stayed tied so that Theseus could find his way back. Theseus entered the maze alone. Theseus found his way to the center of the maze. Using the sword Ariadne had given him, Theseus killed the monster. He followed the string back and knocked on the door. Princess Ariadne was waiting. She opened the door. Without anyone noticing, Prince Theseus and the children of Athens ran to their ship and sailed quietly away. Princess Ariadne sailed away with them. On the way home, they stopped for supplies on the tiny island of Nanox. Princess Ariadne insisted on coming ashore. There was nothing much to do on the island. Soon she fell asleep. All the people gathered to watch the sleeping princess. She was a lovely sight indeed. Theseus sailed quietly away with the children of Athens and left her there, sleeping. After all, a deal is a deal. In the exposition, we can identify the setting, which was a long, long time ago in Athens, Crete. Our major character is Theseus. 2 examples of minor characters would be Princess Ariadne and the Minotaur. Of course, always remember to include the title of your story, in this case, Theseus and the Minotaur. Our inciting incident is very much character versus character. Theseus must defeat the Minotaur in order for the Athenian children to live and not be eaten by him. Pieces of rising action that we see is that they sail to Crete. Then they arrive in Crete. The children are given a day. Ariadne dreams of a different life. She decides to help Theseus, and Theseus and the children enter the maze. The climax of the story is when Theseus defeats the Minotaur, saving the children and himself. In the following action, we see that they are able to sail away safely to an island. In the resolution of the story, we see that Theseus left Ariadne on the island and sailed home to Athens. It's very interesting that he decided to partly honor his part of the bargain, which was to take her away from Crete. But he decided not to take her so far as Athens. Based on this resolution, we could say that the theme is be careful who you trust and how you go about fulfilling your dreams. From the point of Theseus, we could also say, stand up for what you feel is right, even if it puts you in danger. Let's look at your analyzing questions. Number 1, one reason that Theseus and the Minotaur is considered a myth is that it includes. Number 2, Ariadne's betrayal of her father and people is what part of the story? Number 3, which sentence from the story is from the exposition? And finally, number 4, how does the conflict lead to the resolution of the story? Pause here so you can finish answering the questions before moving on to the answer slide. Please go through and check your answers. Come and ask me any questions you might have. Thanks for joining me today. I hope that you can now analyze the elements of a story or drama and how they interact.